Hey guys, today we're going to read chapters 29 and 30 of the Tale of Despereaux. And we're picking up where we left off with Miggery Sow. She was on her way to the castle, right? So she was on her way to the castle because a soldier had come to Uncle, who's not really her uncle, right? But the guy who had bought her from her dad's house. And the soldier had said, you can't own a person. And so he took her to the castle where she was going to be paid. Chapter 29, start with the curtsy and finish with the thread. Miggery Sow's luck continued. On her first day on the job as a castle servant, she was sent to deliver a spool of red thread to the princess. Mind, said the head of the serving staff, a dour woman named Louise. She is royalty, so you must make sure you curtsy. How's that? Shouted Mig. You must curtsy, shouted Louise. Gore, said Mig. Yes'm. She took the spool of thread from Louise and made her way up the golden stairs to the princess's room, talking to herself as she went. Here I am, off to see the princess. Me, Miggery Sow, seeing the princess up close and personal like. And first off, I must curtsy because she is royalty. At the door to the princess's room, Mig had a sudden crisis of confidence. She stood a moment, clutching the spool of thread and muttering to herself. Now, how did that go? She said. Give the princess the thread and then give her a curtsy? No. First the curtsy and then the thread. That's it. Gore, that's right. That's the order. Start with the curtsy and finish with the thread. She knocked at the princess's door. Enter, said the pea. Mig, hearing nothing, knocked again. Enter, said the pea. And Mig, still hearing nothing, knocked yet again. Maybe, she said to herself, the princess ain't home. But then the door was flung wide, and there was the princess herself, staring right at Miggery Sow. Gore, said Mig, her mouth hanging open. Hello, said the princess. Are you the new serving maid? Have you brought me my thread? Curtsy I must, shouted Mig. She gathered her skirts, dropped the spool of thread, stuck a foot out and stepped on the spool, rocked back and forth for what seemed like quite a long time, both to the watching princess and the rocking Mig, and finally fell to the floor with a Miggish thud. Whoopsie, said Miggery Sow. The pea could not help it. She laughed. That's all right, she said to Mig, shaking her head. It's the spirit of the thing that counts. How's that? Shouted Mig. It's the spirit of the thing that counts, shouted Pea. Thank you, miss, said Mig. She got slowly to her feet. She looked at the princess. She looked down at the floor. First the curtsy and then the thread, Mig muttered. Pardon, said the pea. Gore, said Mig, the thread. She dropped to her hands and knees to locate the spool of thread. When she found it, she stood back up and offered it to Pea. I brought you your thread, didn't I? Lovely, said the princess as she took the thread from Mig. Thank you so much. I cannot seem to hold on to a spool of red thread. Every one I have disappears somehow. Are you making a thing? Asked Mig, squinting at the cloth in the pea's hand. I am making a history of the world, my world, said the pea, in tapestry. See? Here is my father, the king, and he's playing the guitar because that is something he loves to do and does quite well. And here is my mother, the queen, and she is eating soup because she loved soup. Soup? Gore, that's against the law. Yes, said the princess. My father outlawed it because my mother died while she was eating it. Your ma's dead? Yes, said the pea. She died just last month. She bit her bottom lip to stop it from trembling. Ain't that the thing, said Mig. My ma is dead too. How old were you when she died? Bold was I, said Mig, taking a step back away from the princess. I'm sorry then. No, no, how old? How old were you? Shouted the pea. Not but 6, said Mig. I'm sorry, said the princess. She gave Mig a quick, deep look of sympathy. How old are you now? 12 years. So am I, said the princess. We're the same age. What's your name? She shouted. Miggery, Miggery Sow, but most just calls me Mig. And I saw you once before, princess. You passed me by on a little white horse on my birthday, it was, and I was in the fields with Uncle Sheep, and it was sunset time. Did I wave to you? Asked the princess. Huh? Did I wave? Shouted the princess. Oh, yes, nodded Mig. But you didn't wave back, said the princess. I did, said Mig, only you didn't see me. Someday I will sit on a little white horse and wear a crown and wave. Someday, said Mig, and she put up a hand to touch her left ear. I will be a princess too. Really? Said the pea, and she gave Mig another quick, deep look, but said nothing else. When Mig finally made her way back down the golden stairs, Louise was waiting for her. How long, she roared, did it take you to deliver a spool of thread to the princess? Too long? Guessed Mig. That's right, said Louise, and she gave Mig a good clout to the ear. You are not destined to be one of our star servants. That is already abundantly clear. No, ma'am, said Mig. That's all right, though, because I aim to be a princess. You? A princess? Don't make me laugh. This, reader, was a little joke on Louise's part, as she was not a person who laughed, ever. Not even at a notion as ridiculous as Miggery Sow becoming a princess. Chapter 30, To the Dungeon. At the castle, for the first time in her young life, Mig had enough to eat, and eat she did. She quickly became plump, and then plumper still. She grew rounder and rounder and bigger, only her head stayed small. Reader, as the teller of this tale, it is my duty from time to time to utter some hard and rather disagreeable truths. In the spirit of honesty, then, I must inform you that Mig was the tiniest bit lazy, and two, she was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. That's to say that, she was a little bit slow-witted. Because of these shortcomings, Louise was hard-pressed to find a job that Miggery Sow could effectively perform. In quick succession, Mig failed as a lady-in-waiting. She was caught trying on the gown of a visiting duchess. A seamstress, she sewed the cloak of the riding master to her own frock and ruined both. And as a chambermaid, she was sent to clean a room. She stood open-mouthed and delighted, admiring the gold walls and floors and tapestries, exclaiming over and over again, "Gore, ain't it pretty? Gore, ain't it something then?" And she did no cleaning at all. And while Mig was trying and failing at these many domestic chores, other important things were happening in the castle. The rat in the dungeon below was pacing and muttering in the darkness, waiting to take his revenge on the princess. And upstairs in the castle, the princess had met a mouse, and the mouse had fallen in love with her. Will there be consequences? Oh, you bet. Just as Mig's inability to perform any job well had its consequences. For finally, as a last resort, Louise sent Mig to the kitchen, where Cook had a reputation for dealing effectively with difficult help. In Cook's kitchen, Mig dropped eggshells in the pound cake batter. She scrubbed the kitchen floor with cooking oil instead of cleanser. She sneezed directly onto the king's pork chop moments before it was to be served to him. Of all the good-for-nothings I have encountered, shouted Cook, surely you are the worst. the most cauliflower-eared, the good-for-nothingest. There's only one place left for you, the dungeon. Huh? Said Mig, cupping a hand around her ear. You are being sent to the dungeon. You are to take the jailer his noonday meal. That will be your duty from now on. Reader, you know that the mice of the castle feared the dungeon. Must I tell you that the humans feared it too? Certainly, it was never far from their thoughts. In the warm months, a foul odor rose out of its dark depths and permeated the whole of the castle. And in the still, cold nights of winter, terrible howls issued from the dark place, as if the castle itself were weeping and moaning. It's only the wind, the people of the castle assured each other. Nothing but the wind. Many a serving girl had been sent to the dungeon bearing the jailer's meal, only to return, white-faced and weeping, hands trembling, teeth chattering, insisting that they would never go back. And worse, there were whispered stories of those servant girls who had been given the job of feeding the jailer, who had gone down the stairs and into the dungeon, who had never been seen or heard from again. Do you believe that this will be Mig's fate? Gore, I hope not. What kind of story would this be without Mig? Listen, you cauliflower-eared fool, shouted Cook. This is what you do. You take the tray of food down to the dungeon and you wait for the old man to eat the food, and then you bring the tray back up. Do you think you can manage that? Aye, I reckon so, said Mig. I take the old man the tray and he eats what's on it, and then I bring the tray back up. Empty it would be then, and I bring the empty tray back up from the deep downs. That's right, said Cook. Seems simple, don't it? But I'm sure you'll find a way to bungle it. Huh? Said Mig. Nothing, said the cook. Good luck to you. You'll be needing it. She watched as Mig descended the dungeon stairs. They were the very same stairs, reader, that the mouse Despereaux had been pushed down the day before. Unlike the mouse, however, Mig had a light. On the tray with the food, there was a single flickering candle to show her the way. She turned on the stairs and looked back at Cook and smiled. That cauliflower-eared, good-for-nothing fool, said Cook, shaking her head. What's to become of someone who goes into the dungeon smiling? I ask you. Reader, for the answer to Cook's question, you must read on. So that's the end of chapter 30. Mig is going down into the dungeon. You know, this is her new job because she messed up all the other ones she had. And did you notice that it said that Mig is going down to the dungeon, down the same stairs that a mouse had gone down the day before? So that's right. Things are starting to come back together, okay? Despereaux, Chiaroscuro, Mig, the princess, they're all going to be meeting with each other soon, and the story is going to start to move forward. So if you're still listening, I appreciate you. Stay with me.